I will never forget that night. October 17th, 2023. The moment when my perfectly ordered military life shattered like glass under heavy boots. The landline rang at exactly 9:37 p.m. I remember checking my watch, a habit drilled into me through years of military precision. Outside, the autumn wind rattled the windows of our modest home just off Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield, California. I was exhausted, having just walked through the door after a 14-hour shift. My uniform jacket hung loose, collar unbuttoned, boots still covered in the fine dust that seemed to coat everything on base during the dry season. I picked up the phone, expecting my husband's warm voice, Commander Jackson Monroe, currently pulling an overnight shift at the command center. "Harper," he said, calm at first. His voice was steady, controlled, the voice that had made me fall in love with him during officer training 8 years ago. "Has Elise gotten home yet?" I paused, confused. Elise was my name. Lieutenant Harper Elise Monroe. "Yes, Jax. I just walked in," I reassured him, chalking it up to exhaustion. We both worked punishing hours, sometimes going days with nothing more than brief phone calls. Between shifts, there was silence on the line, the kind of silence that has weight. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted. His voice turned ice cold, sharp as a blade. "That's impossible. Harper, I'm looking at you right now. You're in the VIP lounge at the base, boarding with Colonel William Stratton." My heart froze. The phone nearly slipped from my trembling hand. Colonel Stratton, Jax's direct superior and the man who'd been making increasingly inappropriate comments toward me for months. Comments I'd reported through proper channels only to have them dismissed as misunderstandings. "Jax, I'm home. I'm standing in our kitchen." My voice cracked. "Whatever you're seeing, whoever you're seeing, it's not me. Don't lie to me," he hissed. The hurt in his voice cut deeper than anger ever could. "I've been hearing rumors for weeks. I defended you. I trusted you. Jackson, please listen." And then, before I could finish, heavy boots echoed behind me. Someone was inside my home. I spun around, reaching instinctively for the service weapon I'd already locked away. The kitchen light caught the silhouette of a woman standing in the doorway leading from the living room. A woman whose presence made my blood run cold. Looking at her was like staring into a mirror. Same height, same build, same auburn hair cut precisely to military regulation length. Same face. My face. The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering against the linoleum floor as we stared at each other. Through the receiver, I could hear Jackson calling my name, his voice growing frantic. "Who are you?" I whispered. Her lips, my lips, curved into a cold smile. "Isn't it obvious? I'm Lieutenant Harper Elise Monroe." She took a step forward, her boots, identical to mine, landing with deliberate force. "The question is, who are you?" My training kicked in. Assess, evaluate, respond. But nothing in my military career had prepared me for confronting my own face worn by someone else. "You're impersonating a United States Air Force officer," I said, struggling to keep my voice even. "That's a federal offense." She laughed, a sound so eerily similar to my own that goosebumps erupted along my arms. "Am I? Because from where I'm standing, you're the impersonator." She gestured to the phone on the floor. "And your husband seems to agree with me." I could still hear Jackson's voice, tinny and distant from the fallen receiver. I bent to retrieve it, never taking my eyes off the woman. "Jax," I said urgently, "I need you to listen. There's someone here. With my badge." The woman interrupted loudly enough for him to hear. "My uniform. My identity." On the other end of the line, Jackson went silent. "Come home now," I said firmly. "There's someone here impersonating me." The woman smirked. "He can't. He's on duty until 0600. Isn't that right, Commander Monroe?" She called toward the phone. And that's when true fear gripped me. She knew our schedules, our routines, our lives. "Who are you working for?" I demanded, mind racing through possibilities. Foreign intelligence? Criminal organization? Terrorist cell? "You should be more concerned about who you're about to lose," she replied coolly. "Your husband thinks you're having an affair with Colonel Stratton. Your commanding officer thinks you've been leaking classified information. And by morning, everyone on base will believe that Lieutenant Harper Monroe has committed treason. My military career, my marriage, my entire life, collapsing in real time before my eyes. And I was powerless to stop it. Why? The question escaped as barely more than a whisper. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. My perfume. Because some people deserve everything they have. Her voice dropped to a menacing whisper. And some people don't. The sound of a car door slamming outside broke the moment. The woman's head snapped toward the window. "That would be my cue," she said, backing toward the hallway. "Don't worry about explaining this to whoever's arriving. I've been laying groundwork for weeks. No one will believe you." She disappeared into the darkness of the hallway just as footsteps pounded up our front porch steps. I lunged after her, but the front door burst open before I could reach the hallway. Captain Taylor Prescott, my closest friend on base, stood framed in the doorway, her face a mask of concern. "Harper? Jackson called me. He said something about—" Her words died as she took in my disheveled appearance and wild eyes. "What's happening?" I grabbed her arm. "Someone was just here. A woman who looks exactly like me. We need to search the house." The skepticism that flashed across Taylor's face was like a physical blow. "Harper, Jackson said you've been acting strange for weeks. He's worried. You're having some kind of breakdown. Taylor, please. You have to believe me." My voice broke, the composure I'd maintained through combat zones and crisis situations finally crumbling. "Someone is stealing my life." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, let's check the house." We searched every room, every closet, every possible hiding place. Nothing. No sign of forced entry, no evidence anyone else had been there. The woman had vanished as completely as if she'd never existed. When we finished, Taylor stood in my living room, her expression torn between concern and disbelief. Behind her, through the window, I could see the lights of Travis Air Force Base glowing in the distance. The place that had been my home, my purpose, my identity. The place where apparently another Harper Monroe was currently destroying everything I'd built. "I swear to you," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "someone is impersonating me, and tomorrow I'm going to prove it." I had no idea then how deeply the deception ran, or how high the cost of uncovering the truth would be. The next morning dawned with the harsh clarity of a tactical floodlight. I hadn't slept. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, my face, smiling that cold, calculating smile. Taylor had stayed the night, sleeping on my couch after I'd convinced her not to call mental health services. She didn't fully believe me, but she'd known me long enough to give me the benefit of doubt, at least until morning. I'd spent the night poring over our house, looking for evidence of intrusion, clues to the woman's identity, anything. The only thing I found was a hairpin under the guest bathroom sink that I didn't recognize. Hardly smoking gun evidence of an identity thief. "We should head to base," Taylor said over coffee, watching me carefully, like I might fracture at any moment. "Jackson will be off duty soon. You can talk to him in person." I nodded, buttoning my fresh uniform with trembling fingers. "And I need to speak with security forces. File a report about the break-in." Taylor's expression tightened. "Harper, there were no signs of forced entry. All doors and windows were locked from the inside." "She had keys," I insisted. "She knew the codes. Taylor, she knew our schedules, for God's sake." My friend's silence spoke volumes. The drive to Travis Air Force Base was tense, the familiar landscape of Fairfield blurring past my window. I'd made this commute for 4 years, since Jackson and I had been stationed here after 3 years at Lackland. This base was home. These people were family. The idea that someone could infiltrate me, was almost too much to comprehend. "I'm going to figure this out," I said, more to myself than to Taylor. "Someone is setting me up, and I'm going to find out who." Taylor glanced at me, her expression softening. "If someone really is impersonating you, we'll get to the bottom of it. That's a promise." The gates of Travis loomed ahead. I presented my ID to the guard, who scrutinized it longer than usual. "Everything all right, Lieutenant Monroe?" he asked, his tone oddly formal. "Yes, Sergeant Miller. Just reporting for duty." He handed back my ID with a curt nod. "You're cleared to proceed, ma'am." As we drove onto the base, an uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. Something was off. "Did Miller seem strange to you?" I asked Taylor. She kept her eyes on the road. "He seemed normal to me." We parked outside the command center where Jackson would be finishing his shift. The morning sun glinted off the windows momentarily, blinding me as I stepped out of the car. When my vision cleared, I saw him, my husband, standing rigid by the entrance, his face a storm of emotions. I moved toward him, relief flooding through me. "Jax! Lieutenant Monroe!" He cut me off, his voice professionally detached. "Captain Prescott, I'd like to speak with you both in private." My steps faltered. In 6 years of marriage, he'd never addressed me by rank when we were alone. He led us to a small conference room off the main corridor, closing the door with deliberate care. When he turned to face me, the pain in his eyes was almost unbearable. "Jackson," I began. "About last night?" "I saw you," he interrupted, his voice low and controlled. "With my own eyes, Harper. In the VIP lounge with Stratton, his hand on your lower back. You were laughing." "It wasn't me," I insisted. "Someone who looks exactly like me was in our house last night. At the same time you claim you saw me with Stratton." He exhaled slowly, running a hand over his face. "Do you know how that sounds?" "Insane." "I know it sounds insane." I stepped toward him, desperate to break through. "But it's the truth. Ask Taylor. She came to the house after you." "Called her." Jackson looked at Taylor, who shifted uncomfortably. "I arrived after whoever Harper says was there had already gone," she admitted. "But she was distressed, convinced someone had been in the house. There were no signs of forced entry," Jackson stated flatly. "Because she had keys!" I exclaimed, frustration mounting. "Jax, think about it. The rumors about me and Stratton started, what, 3 weeks ago? Around the same time things started disappearing from the house? My spare uniform, my backup credentials, my grandmother's earrings?" A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. "You said you misplaced those things." "I thought I had," I admitted. "But now, Jackson, someone is systematically stealing my identity, and they're doing it to destroy me." Taylor cleared her throat. "Commander, is there security footage of the VIP lounge from last night?" Jackson nodded slowly. "Yes, that's actually why I wanted to speak with you both." He pulled out his tablet and tapped the screen. "This was recorded at 21:30 hours. He turned the tablet toward us. On the screen was high-definition footage of the officers' VIP lounge. And there I was, or someone wearing my face, laughing intimately with Colonel William Stratton, his hand resting possessively on my hip in a way that made my skin crawl. "That's not me," I whispered, though the evidence was damning. The woman on screen had my walk, my mannerisms, even the small scar on my right temple from a childhood accident. "Harper," Jackson said softly, and the use of my first name gave me a glimmer of hope. "I want to believe you. But this," he gestured to the footage, "combined with the reports from other officers about your behavior these past few weeks." "What reports?" I demanded. He hesitated. "Inappropriate comments, missing classified briefings, unauthorized access to secure areas. And yesterday, your security badge was used to enter the weapons depot during your documented shift in this command center." The room seemed to spin around me. "I haven't done any of those things." "Then someone with your face, your badge, and your access codes has," Taylor said quietly. "And that's problematic." The understatement of the century. In the Air Force, security breaches weren't just career-ending. They could be criminal, treasonous even. "I need to report this," I said firmly. "To security forces, to OSI, to anyone who will listen." Jackson's expression hardened. "I've already spoken to Colonel Stratton. He's ordered a full investigation." My blood ran cold. "Stratton? Jax? He's part of this. He's the one in that video. He's my commanding officer, and he's concerned about you." Jackson's voice was tight. "We all are." The betrayal cut deep, but I forced myself to think logically. The woman who was in our house last night, she said people would think I committed treason. What if Stratton is using her to frame me? Or what if you're having some kind of psychological break? Jackson countered gently. "PTSD from your last deployment, maybe." "It happens, Harper. To the best of us." I stared at him. This man I'd loved for 8 years, who now looked at me like I was a stranger, or worse, like I was someone to be pitied. "I'm not crazy," I said, each word deliberate, "and I'm going to prove it." Before either of them could respond, the conference room door swung open. Colonel William Stratton stood in the doorway, his silver hair immaculately styled, his uniform pristine. Behind him stood 2 security forces officers, their expressions grave. "Lieutenant Harper." "Elise Monroe," Stratton announced, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "You're hereby relieved of duty pending investigation into serious security breaches. Please surrender your sidearm and credentials." As the security forces officers moved toward me, I caught a glimpse of movement in the hallway behind them, a flash of auburn hair, a familiar silhouette, and for just a moment, my own. Eyes staring back at me, filled with cold triumph. Then she was gone, and I was left facing the ruins of everything I had built. The security forces officers escorted me to a small, sterile interrogation room in the basement of the security forces building. The walls were an institutional gray, the table and chairs bolted to the floor. A camera blinked silently from the corner, recording every move, every word, every flicker of emotion across my face. They'd taken my service weapon, my phone, my credentials, stripping away the physical markers of my identity. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Someone will be with you shortly," one of the officers said before closing the door, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the hum of fluorescent lights. I forced myself to breathe deeply, to think like the officer I was trained to be rather than the panicked woman I felt like. If someone was systematically stealing my identity, they'd left traces, evidence. No impersonation could be perfect, especially in a military environment where routines and protocols were rigidly observed. The door opened after 23 minutes. I'd been counting, and a man in civilian clothes entered. Special Agent Victor Reyes, Air Force Office of Special Investigations. I'd worked with OSI before on security matters, but had never been on this side of their scrutiny. "Lieutenant Monroe," he said, sitting across from me and placing a folder on the table. "I understand we have an unusual situation." "That's one way to put it," I replied, keeping my voice steady. He opened the folder. "Security breaches in 3 different classified areas. Inappropriate relationship with a superior officer. And now, claims of an impersonator." I leaned forward. "Not claims, facts. Someone who looks identical to me was in my home last night while I was allegedly seen with Colonel Stratton." "Allegedly?" Reyes raised an eyebrow. "I was home. Whoever was with Stratton, it wasn't me." Reyes studied me with practiced neutrality. "Your husband positively identified you in the VIP lounge." "He identified someone who looks like me," I corrected. "Agent Reyes, I'm being framed, and I think Colonel Stratton is behind it." He didn't react to the accusation, instead pulling out several photographs and laying them on the table. Security camera stills showing me entering restricted areas, talking intimately with Stratton, accessing classified terminals. "That's not me," I insisted, examining each photo carefully. "But it's a damn good forgery." "Forgery implies technological manipulation," Reyes noted. "Are you suggesting these images were digitally altered?" I shook my head. "No. I'm suggesting someone who looks exactly like me is physically impersonating me. I saw her in my house last night." "And Captain Prescott corroborates this?" "She arrived after the woman left, but she can confirm my state of mind." Reyes made a note. "We've reviewed your personnel file. No mention of a twin sister or similar relative." The question hit like a physical blow. A twin. The possibility hadn't even occurred to me. "I don't have a twin," I said slowly. "I'm an only child. My parents died in a car accident when I was 17. I was raised by my grandmother until she passed away during my 2nd year at the academy." "And you've never undertaken any cosmetic procedures? Never participated in any genetic studies?" "No." The questions were becoming increasingly bizarre. "Agent Reyes, instead of questioning my biology, why not investigate how someone gained access to secure areas using my credentials?" He closed the folder. "We are, Lieutenant, on all fronts, including the possibility that you're experiencing some form of dissociative episode." "I'm not crazy," I said firmly, "and I can prove it." "How?" I thought quickly. "Security cameras. Check the footage from my neighborhood last night. You'll see me arriving home at approximately 21:15 hours, the same time I was supposedly with Stratton." Reyes nodded. "We'll look into it. In the meantime, you're confined to base. No duties, no access to sensitive areas. Your movements will be monitored." "Am I under arrest?" "Not yet. Consider it protective custody." The implication was clear. They were protecting the base from me, not me from some mysterious doppelganger. After Reyes left, I was moved to a small room in the Yao, visiting officers' quarters. A security forces officer was stationed outside my door. Not officially a guard, they explained, but there for my protection. I sat on the edge of the bed, mind racing. If they checked the neighborhood cameras, they'd see me arriving home. But what if the cameras had been tampered with? What if the woman had planned for this contingency? A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. The door opened to reveal Taylor, her expression a mixture of concern and determination. "You look terrible," she said, closing the door behind her. "Thanks. I feel worse." She sat beside me. "I've been thinking about what you said, about someone impersonating you." Hope flickered. "And? It sounds crazy." She held up a hand before I could protest. "But I've known you for 3 years, Harper. You're not crazy, and you're not a traitor. For the first time since the previous night, I felt tears burning behind my eyes. Thank you for believing that. I don't know if I believe everything, she admitted, but I believe in you enough to help find the truth. I wiped at my eyes. They're checking security footage from our neighborhood. If it hasn't been tampered with, it should show me arriving home when I was supposedly with Stratton. Taylor nodded. I'll see what I can find out. In the meantime, I did some digging. She lowered her voice. 3 weeks ago, Colonel Stratton authorized a civilian consultant for a classified project. A woman named Elise Renard. My middle name is Elise, I whispered. I know. The coincidence seemed worth exploring. She pulled out her phone and showed me a personnel file. The photograph was blurry, but the woman had similar coloring to mine. Could be her, I said, studying the image. Where is she now? That's the thing. According to records, she left the base 2 days ago. Contract terminated early. My mind raced. She didn't leave. She's still here, using my identity. Taylor looked skeptical. That's a massive leap, Harper. Is it? My security badge has been used to access areas I never entered. Someone who looks exactly like me was seen with Stratton while I was home. And now we have a mysterious consultant with my middle name who supposedly left, but whose contract might provide the perfect cover for staying on base. Put together, it sounded plausible. Almost. What's Stratton's angle? Taylor asked. Why frame you? I thought about the inappropriate comments, the lingering touches I'd rebuffed, the complaints I'd filed that had disappeared into administrative black holes. I rejected him, I said simply, multiple times, and I reported his behavior. Sexual harassment isn't enough reason to risk treason charges, Taylor pointed out. Unless there's something bigger he's hiding, I countered. Something he thinks I know or found out. Taylor stood, straightening her uniform. I need to go before anyone gets suspicious of why I'm here. I'll see what else I can discover about Elise Renard. Be careful, I warned. If Stratton's involved, he has significant power on this base. After she left, I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. A plan was forming. Dangerous, possibly. Career-ending if I was wrong, but necessary. I needed evidence. And to get it, I'd need to find the woman who had stolen my face. As night fell, I watched the lights of the base through my window, thinking of Jackson. Was he doubting everything now? Our marriage? His own judgment? The thought of his pain added to my determination. Whoever was doing this hadn't just attacked me. They'd attacked us. I would find the truth. I would reclaim my identity. And when I did, there would be no doubt about who Lieutenant Harper Elise Monroe really was. Morning arrived with a sharp knock on my door. The security forces officer outside, Airman Chen according to his nameplate, informed me that I was expected at OSI headquarters at 0900. May I shower and change first? I asked, gesturing to my rumpled uniform from the previous day. Yes, ma'am, I'll escort you to the bathroom down the hall. The indignity of having an escort to the shower was just another reminder of my new reality. Suspected traitor. Possible security risk. Woman having a mental breakdown. At Aero 855, Chen led me across the base to the OSI building. The morning was crisp and clear, the kind of autumn day that usually energized me. Today, it felt like a mockery of normalcy. Agent Reyes was waiting in a conference room, along with a woman in a navy blue suit that screamed federal investigator. Lieutenant Monroe, this is Special Agent Diana Foster, FBI, Reyes said. Given the nature of the alleged security breaches, this investigation now includes federal oversight. I nodded at Foster, instantly alert. FBI involvement meant this was escalating beyond a simple case of military misconduct. We've reviewed the security footage from your neighborhood, Foster began without preamble, and we have some questions. My heart raced. The footage would prove I was home, not with Stratton. The cameras show you arriving at your residence at 21:17 hours, she continued, which appears to contradict your presence in the VIP lounge at the same time. Relief washed through me. Then you believe me? There's someone impersonating me? Foster exchanged a glance with Reyes. Not necessarily. The timestamp on the neighborhood footage appears to have been altered. My momentary triumph collapsed. Altered? That's impossible. The system logs show the timestamp was manually reset 3 days ago, Reyes explained. All footage since then has been running approximately 26 minutes behind actual time. So, according to the corrected time, Foster added, you arrived home at 2143 hours, after leaving the VIP lounge. My mind raced. No, that's not right. Check my phone GPS data. It will show my movements. We have, Reyes said. Your phone was in your house from 1900 hours onward. Because I left it there. During my shift, I exclaimed, frustration mounting. Check the base exit logs. They'll show me leaving at the end of my shift. Foster pulled out a tablet. Base security scanned your ID at 17:32 hours when you left the command center. The next scan is at 21:42 when you returned to base, matching the corrected time of the neighborhood footage. I shook my head vehemently. No, that's wrong. I never returned to base until this morning. Someone else used my ID. Someone who looks exactly like you on multiple security cameras? Foster's skepticism was palpable. Lieutenant, we're trying to understand what's happening, but your explanation requires us to believe in an elaborate conspiracy involving a perfect double. Or a twin, Reyes added quietly. I slammed my palm on the table. I don't have a twin. I grew up in the foster system after my parents died. I have no siblings. Are you certain of that? Foster asked. Have you ever taken a DNA test? Searched for biological relatives? The questions ignited a spark of doubt. My parents had died when I was 17, old enough to have known if I had a twin. But what if they had separated us at birth? What if I'd never been told? No. I couldn't start questioning my entire life history. That was exactly what they wanted. My identity is being stolen, I insisted. And instead of investigating the real security breach, you're wasting time questioning my sanity and genealogy. Foster leaned forward. Lieutenant, we're pursuing all avenues, including the possibility that someone is impersonating you. But we need evidence, not just your word against security footage and multiple witnesses. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think strategically. What about Captain Prescott? She saw me at home last night. She can confirm I wasn't on base. Captain Prescott arrived at your residence at 2159 hours, according to the neighborhood footage, Reyes said. By then, the woman in the VIP lounge had already left. Every piece of evidence was being twisted against me. Whoever was behind this had planned meticulously. What about the consultant? I asked. Elise Renard. Have you investigated her? Foster's expression shifted subtly. How do you know about Elise Renard? Public records. I lied, not wanting to implicate Taylor. A civilian consultant with my middle name who arrived just when the security breaches began. It seemed worth mentioning. Reyes made a note. We'll look into her. In the meantime, we've arranged for you to speak with Dr. Sarah Winters, the base psychologist. I'm not having a breakdown, I said flatly. Nevertheless, standard protocol requires psychological evaluation in cases like this. Foster stood, gathering her materials. Dr. Winters is expecting you at 1100 hours. After they left, I sat alone in the conference room, mind churning. They were building a case, not against a mysterious impersonator, but against me. Mental instability, paranoid delusions, the perfect explanation for a decorated officer suddenly engaging in security breaches and inappropriate behavior. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Roof of Building C, 1030, come alone. T. Taylor. She must have found something. Getting away from my security force's shadow would be challenging, but not impossible. As a lieutenant with over 4 years of service, I knew this base intimately, including its blind spots and maintenance passages. At precisely 10:20, I asked Airman Chen to escort me to the bathroom. Once inside, I climbed onto the counter and pushed open the ventilation. Great, a relic from the building's original 1950s construction. The passage was tight, but navigable. Within 5 minutes, I emerged behind Building B, dusty but undetected. Building C was just across the quad, an administrative building with roof access via an external maintenance ladder. I kept my head down, cap pulled low, moving with purpose but not hurry. Just another officer going about her duties. The roof was empty when I arrived. I checked my watch. 10:28. I'd made it. You shouldn't have come. I spun around. Taylor stepped out from behind an air conditioning unit, her expression grim. What did you find? I asked. She handed me a folder. Elise Renard's complete file. Classified, so don't ask how I got it. I opened it eagerly. Inside was a comprehensive background check, security clearance documents, and a clear photograph. My blood ran cold. The woman staring back at me from the photograph could have been my sister. Similar bone structure, similar coloring. But she wasn't identical. Close enough to pass as me at a distance or in dim lighting, perhaps, but not the mirror image I'd seen in my kitchen. This isn't her, I said, confused. No, Taylor agreed. But it gets stranger. I did some digging into this Elise Renard. The address she listed, abandoned building, the references, they check out on paper, but they're ghosts. No digital footprint beyond what's necessary for background verification. She's a fabrication, I realized. A cover identity. Taylor nodded. Created with enough legitimacy to pass preliminary checks, but not deep scrutiny. So who's the woman I saw? The one who looks exactly like me? That's why I asked you to come. Taylor's voice dropped. I think I found her, or at least a lead. My pulse quickened. Where? Building 237, the old research wing that's been under renovation for the past 6 months. Stratton's special project is housed there, officially a communications encryption initiative, but the security is extreme. Or a communications project. You think she's there? My double? I think something is there that Stratton doesn't want anyone to know about, Taylor replied. And I think it's worth investigating. I hesitated. Breaking into a classified facility while under investigation for security breaches was career suicide at best, criminal at worst. If we're caught, if we do nothing, you'll be court-martialed for crimes you didn't commit, Taylor interrupted. Your career is already on the line. Might as well risk it for the truth. She was right. I had nothing left to lose except my freedom and my reputation, both of which were already in jeopardy. When? I asked. Tonight. 100 hours. The guard rotation creates a 3-minute window on the east side of the building. I nodded, memorizing the details. I'll find a way out of the VOQ. Taylor gripped my arm. Harper, if Stratton is behind this, if there really is someone impersonating you, we're dealing with something bigger than harassment or personal vendetta. This could be espionage. The weight of her words settled heavily on my shoulders. If she was right, this wasn't just about saving my career or my marriage. It was about national security. I need to get back before they notice I'm gone, I said. 1 a.m., building 237, east entrance. As I turned to leave, Taylor called after me softly. Harper, be careful who you trust, even Jackson. The suggestion that my husband might be involved cut deep, but I couldn't dismiss it. Not when everything I thought I knew was being systematically dismantled. I made my way back through the ventilation system and returned to the bathroom just as Airman Chen was beginning to get concerned about my extended absence. As we walked to the psychologist's office, my mind was already mapping out the night's mission. I would find the truth, whatever it took. And when I did, someone would pay for stealing my life. Dr. Sarah Winters was exactly what I expected. Professional, compassionate, and absolutely convinced I was experiencing some form of psychological break. Stress-induced dissociation is more common in military personnel than many realize, she explained, her voice gentle as if speaking to a frightened child. The pressure of your position, combined with possible unresolved trauma from your last deployment. I nodded at appropriate intervals, answered her. Questions with just enough detail to seem cooperative but not enough to further her suspicions. Inside, I was planning my escape from the VOQ, mentally mapping security camera blind spots, calculating timing. By the time our session ended, Dr. Winters seemed cautiously optimistic about my willingness to consider alternative explanations for what I'd experienced. She scheduled another session for the following day and recommended rest. Rest was the last thing on my mind. Back in my quarters, I lay fully clothed on the bed, watching the minutes tick by. 2,200 hours. 2,300. Midnight. The base grew quieter, the skeleton night crew taking their positions. Outside my door, Airman Chen was replaced by Airman Rodriguez for the night shift. At 0045, I moved into action. The VOQ was an older building, constructed before modern security concerns. The window in my bathroom opened just enough for someone of my slender build to squeeze through. I'd already tested it earlier, under the pretense of trying to get fresh air. I silently slipped out, dropping 6 feet to the ground below and rolling to absorb the impact. The night was overcast, perfect for covert movement. I kept to the shadows, using buildings and parked vehicles for cover, moving swiftly but deliberately toward Building 237. The structure loomed against the night sky, a relic from the Cold War era. Once a research facility for experimental aircraft, it had supposedly been slated for renovation into modern laboratories. But according to Taylor, Stratton had claimed it for his mysterious communications project. I reached the east entrance at 0058, pressing myself against the wall beside the door. 1 minute later, Taylor emerged from the darkness, dressed in black tactical gear. Security cameras are on a loop for the next 4 minutes, she whispered, holding up a keycard. Borrowed this from Lieutenant Chen in IT. Should get us past the first checkpoint. I nodded, adrenaline coursing through my veins. As Taylor swiped the card, the door clicked open and we slipped inside, finding ourselves in a dimly lit corridor. According to the building schematics, the main lab is 2 floors down, Taylor said. Limited access, biometric scanners, which means my fingerprints or retinal scan might work if my double is using my biometric data, I reasoned. We moved silently through the corridor, passing empty offices and dark conference rooms. The facility appeared deserted, but I knew better than to assume we were alone. Projects important enough to warrant this level of security never truly shut down. At the end of the corridor, we reached an elevator requiring another keycard swipe. Taylor's borrowed credentials worked again, and we descended to the sublevels. The doors opened onto a sterile hallway bathed in the blue glow of emergency lighting. At the far end stood a reinforced door with a biometric scanner, exactly the obstacle we'd anticipated. If I'm right and they're using my biometrics, I began. Then your handprint should open it, Taylor finished. I approached the scanner, pulse racing, and pressed my palm against the cool glass. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft beep, and the door slid open. We were right, I breathed. They've duplicated my security clearance. The laboratory beyond was vast and eerily lit by the glow of computer monitors. Workstations lined the walls, and in the center of the room stood what looked like medical equipment, examination tables, monitoring devices, and machines I didn't recognize. What is this place? Taylor whispered, moving toward the nearest computer terminal. I approached the central area, a sense of foreboding washing over me. This wasn't a communications project. It looked more like a medical research facility, I said, examining an array of vials containing what appeared to be blood samples. Each was labeled with a code rather than a name. Taylor had managed to access one of the computers. Harper, you need to see this. I joined her, looking over her shoulder at the screen. Project Doppelganger. The name alone sent chills down my spine. Advanced facial reconstruction combined with personality imprinting, Taylor read, scrolling through the document. My God, Harper. They're not just creating lookalikes, they're creating perfect copies, physically and psychologically. My mind raced to process the implications. That's impossible, the technology doesn't exist. Apparently it does, Taylor countered, pulling up another file. Subject 37, female, mid-30s, military background. Perfect candidate for prototype testing. An image appeared on screen. A woman with my face but not my expression. The same woman I'd seen in my kitchen. They used me as a template, I whispered, horror dawning. They created a copy of me. Not just a copy, Taylor said grimly. According to this, they're using a combination of advanced surgical techniques and some kind of neural programming. They're not just making someone look like you. They're trying to make someone think they are you. The enormity of it hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just identity theft. It was something far more insidious, an attempt to literally replace me. But why? Before I could voice the question, Taylor pulled up another file. Project Infiltration, Phase 1, replace key personnel in military intelligence positions. My blood ran cold. They're planning to replace military officers with duplicates? That's treason, Taylor finished, and Stratton is running it. A noise from the corridor sent us both diving for cover. Footsteps approached. Multiple sets, moving with purpose. We need to get out of here, Taylor hissed. We have what we need. Not yet, I insisted, gesturing toward another door at the far end of the lab. If my double is here, I need to find her. Taylor grabbed my arm. Harper, we don't have time. The footsteps grew louder. Any second now, they would enter the lab. Go, I urged her. Take what we found to Agent Foster. I'll find another way out. Taylor hesitated, then nodded. East exit, 5 minutes. If I'm not there, don't wait. She slipped away toward the main door while I darted across the lab to the second door, pressing my palm against its scanner. It opened silently onto a darkened corridor. Behind me, I heard the main lab door slide open. Voices, filling the space I'd just vacated. I moved deeper into the darkness, guided only by the faint glow of emergency lighting. The corridor opened into what appeared to be a recovery ward. Hospital beds lined the walls, most empty. But the one at the far end held a figure, connected to monitoring equipment that beeped softly in the darkness. I approached cautiously, heart hammering against my ribs. As I drew closer, the figure's features became clear in the dim light. My own face, peaceful in sleep. My double. She was heavily sedated, various tubes and wires connecting her to the surrounding machines. A chart hung at the foot of the bed. Subject 37, post-imprint recovery. I stared at her. This woman who wore my face, who had been programmed to believe she was me, who had been used to destroy my life. A victim, I realized, just as I was. The sound of a door opening somewhere in the ward spurred me to action. I quickly snapped photos of the chart and the sleeping woman with my phone, then retreated the way I had come. The lab was now occupied by several researchers in white coats, too engrossed in their work to notice me slipping along the wall toward an emergency exit at the far side. The exit led to a stairwell, which I ascended as quickly and quietly as possible, emerging on the ground floor near a side entrance. A quick check of my watch, 01:18. Taylor would be waiting at the east exit. I moved through the shadows, adrenaline making every sense hyper-aware. Just as I rounded the corner toward our rendezvous point, a hand clamped over my mouth, pulling me into the darkness, between two dumpsters. "Don't scream!" Jackson's voice hissed in my ear. I froze at the sound of my husband's voice, mind racing through possibilities. Ally or enemy? Had he followed me? Had he been part of this all along? Jackson slowly removed his hand from my mouth, keeping his other arm firmly around my waist. "What the hell are you doing, Harper?" I turned to face him, searching his eyes for any sign of duplicity. "I could ask you the same question. I've been watching your quarters," he admitted. "When you slipped out, I followed you." His expression hardened. "I thought maybe I'd catch you meeting Stratton." So he still believed I was having an affair. The realization hurt, but at least it meant he wasn't actively involved in the conspiracy. "I'm not meeting Stratton," I said, quietly. "I'm gathering evidence to prove I'm being framed." Jackson's eyes narrowed. "By breaking into a classified facility? Harper, do you have any idea how much worse this makes everything look?" "I don't care how it looks," I hissed. "I care about the truth, and the truth is in that building." His gaze shifted toward Building 237. "What truth?" I hesitated. How much could I tell him? How much would he believe? "Project Doppelganger," I said finally. "Stratton is running a program to create perfect duplicates of military personnel, starting with me." I expected disbelief, dismissal. Instead, a flash of recognition crossed his face. "You know something," I realized. "What do you know, Jax?" He glanced around nervously. "Not here. We need to move." As if punctuating his words, the sound of an alarm blared from Building 237. Red emergency lights began to flash across the base. "They've discovered the breach," I said. "We need to find Taylor." "Taylor's involved in this?" Jackson looked stunned. "She helped me get in. She was supposed to meet me at the east exit 5 minutes ago." Jackson cursed under his breath. "Security will lock down the entire base. We need to get you back to your quarters before they realize you're gone." I shook my head. "Not without Taylor." "Harper, she risked everything to help me," I insisted. "I'm not leaving her behind." A flurry of movement near the east exit caught my attention. Security forces officers, weapons drawn, surrounding a figure on the ground. Even from a distance, I recognized Taylor's tactical gear. "They've got her," Jackson whispered, pulling me deeper into the shadows as a spotlight swept past our hiding place. My mind raced. Taylor had the evidence on her. The files she'd downloaded about Project Doppelganger. If security confiscated it before Foster saw it. "I have photos," I told Jackson, pulling out my phone, "of my double, of the project files. We need to get them to Agent Foster." Jackson's expression darkened. "You're assuming Foster isn't part of this." The thought hadn't occurred to me. "You think the FBI is involved?" "I think we don't know who to trust," he said grimly. "And right now, our priority is getting you somewhere safe." The base was now fully awake, security personnel moving in formation toward Building 237, floodlights illuminating the grounds. "My quarters are the first place." "They'll look," I pointed out. Jackson nodded. "Which is why we're not going there." He took my hand. "Come on. I know a place." We moved through the base using service corridors and maintenance tunnels that Jackson had mapped during his years overseeing base security protocols. The alarm continued to blare, but we stayed ahead of the search patterns, eventually emerging near the motor pool. "Base is going into lockdown," Jackson said, scanning the area. "We have maybe 2 minutes to get off property before they seal all exits." He led me to a nondescript sedan, his personal vehicle, and we slipped inside. The guard at the main gate was distracted by the chaos, waving vehicles through with only cursory checks as personnel responded to the emergency. We were 3 miles from base when Jackson finally spoke again. "I need to know everything, Harper, from the beginning." So I told him about the woman in our house, about the security footage showing me with Stratton, about Taylor's discovery of Elise Renard's false identity, and finally, about what we'd found in Building 237. "A program to replace military officers with duplicates," I finished. "It sounds insane, but I saw her, Jax. I saw a woman with my face, sedated in a recovery ward. They've labeled her Subject 37 and are keeping her in that facility." Jackson was silent for a long moment, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. 3 months ago, I was approached about a new security initiative, he said finally. Stratton called it Project Mirror, said it was a counterintelligence measure, creating convincing decoys of high-value personnel to confuse potential kidnappers or assassins. My breath caught. "You knew?" "Not about this," he said quickly. What he described was essentially advanced masks and body doubles, theatrical techniques combined with some new technology. Nothing like creating actual duplicates, nothing like what you're describing. "Did you agree to it?" Jackson nodded reluctantly. "It seemed legitimate, had all the proper authorizations. I assigned a security detail to the project." His expression darkened. 3 weeks ago, Stratton removed my people, claimed the project was being mothballed due to budget cuts. That's when the security breaches started, I realized, when my double began appearing on base. If what you're saying is true, if Stratton has actually created some kind of duplicate of you, then this goes way beyond harassment or personal vendetta, Jackson said. "This is a major national security breach." I remembered Taylor's words from earlier. "Espionage," I whispered. We drove in silence for several minutes, both processing the implications. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning in my mind. "Did you really believe I was having an affair? With Stratton?" Jackson's jaw tightened. "I didn't want to. But there was so much evidence, Harper. Security footage, witness statements, even love letters they found in your desk." "Love letters?" My disgust was genuine. "Jax, I would never—" "I know that now," he interrupted, reaching for my hand. "Or at least I'm starting to believe it again. But you have to understand how convincing it all was." The hurt was still there, raw and pulsing. He had doubted me, doubted us. But there would be time for healing those wounds later. Right now, we had more urgent concerns. "Where are we going?" I asked, noticing we had left the main highway for a series of increasingly remote country roads. "Somewhere safe," Jackson replied. "A cabin owned by a friend from my ranger days. Off the grid? No. Digital footprint. We can regroup there, figure out our next move." As we drove deeper into the darkness, I thought about Taylor, now in custody, about my double, sedated in that cold facility, about the conspiracy that had nearly destroyed my life. "We need evidence that will stand up in court," I said. "Photos on a phone won't be enough, especially if Stratton has influence in the FBI." Jackson, nodded grimly. "I know someone, an old friend at the Pentagon. If anyone can help us navigate this, it's him." The cabin appeared through the trees, small and dark. Jackson pulled up beside it, killing the headlights. "We should be safe here for a few hours," he said. "But by morning, they'll have identified my vehicle leaving base. We'll need to move again." Inside, the cabin was sparse but functional. A main room with a fireplace, a small kitchen area, a bedroom visible through an open door. Jackson checked the perimeter while I sent the photos from my phone to an encrypted email account I'd established years ago for emergency communications. "If something happens to my phone, at least the evidence is preserved somewhere," I explained when Jackson returned. He nodded, then pulled me into an embrace so sudden and fierce it took my breath away. "I'm sorry," he whispered against my hair, "for doubting you, for not protecting you." I allowed myself a moment of weakness, leaning into his strength. "You're here now. That's what matters." We broke apart at the sound of approaching vehicles, the crunch of tires on gravel, the flash of headlights through the trees. "They found us," Jackson muttered, moving to the window. "How?" I was careful. I joined him, peering through the dusty curtains. 2 black SUVs had pulled up outside, their occupants emerging with tactical precision. Not security forces. Something else. "Could be FBI," Jackson whispered. "Or whoever Stratton's working with." My heart sank as a familiar figure emerged from the second vehicle. Colonel William. Stratton himself, immaculate in his uniform despite the late hour. And beside him, stepping into the moonlight with confident grace, was my double. No longer sedated, no longer a victim. She wore my uniform, stood with my posture, even moved with my characteristic precision. That's her, I breathed. Subject 37. Jackson stared in disbelief. My God, she's identical to you. Not for long, I said, grimly, reaching for my phone. I'm calling Agent Foster. We need to end this now. But before I could dial, the phone lit up with an incoming call from Taylor's number. I answered cautiously. Taylor? Lieutenant Monroe. Colonel Stratton's voice, smooth and commanding. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Actually, Colonel, you have something that belongs to me, I replied, surprising myself with my steady voice. My identity. Stratton chuckled, the sound chilling through the phone's speaker. I'd like to discuss this civilly, Lieutenant. May I come inside? I glanced at Jackson, who shook his head vehemently. Not a chance, I said into the phone. Where's Captain Prescott? Captain Prescott is unharmed, merely detained for questioning regarding her role in, tonight's breach. Her fate depends largely on how our conversation progresses, Stratton replied. I'm giving you one opportunity to surrender peacefully. The alternative won't be pleasant. Jackson moved to the back of the cabin, checking escape routes. 2 minutes, he mouthed. What exactly do you want, Colonel? I asked, stalling. The files and photographs you took from Building 237, the evidence of Project Doppelganger. So he knew exactly what we'd discovered. And if I hand it over, then perhaps we can reach an arrangement that benefits everyone, Stratton said smoothly. Your career restored, your reputation intact. Captain Prescott released without charges. And what about her? I demanded, watching my double through the window. Subject 37? A pause. You've seen her. Then? I've done more than see her. I know what you've done, what you're planning. Replacing military officers with duplicates? That's high treason, Colonel. Another chuckle. So dramatic, Lieutenant. Project Doppelganger is a national security initiative, approved at the highest levels. Think of the advantages. Perfect infiltration agents for foreign operations. Undetectable replacements for compromised assets. Except it wasn't approved, was it? I countered. Commander Monroe was told it was a decoy project, masks and body doubles, not actual human duplicates. Stratton's voice hardened. Compartmentalization is standard for classified operations. Commander Monroe was given information appropriate to his clearance level. Jackson was now at my side, showing me the screen of his own phone. He'd messaged his Pentagon contact, Major General Robert Lawson. The response made my heart leap. Confirmed. En route with OSI team. Maintain position. Help was coming. We just needed to stall. Why me? I asked Stratton. Out of all the officers on base, why target me for your prototype? You were perfect, he replied, something like pride in his voice. Exemplary service record. Limited. Family connections. Strong psychological profile. And of course, your rejection of my advances made you expendable. The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. I was chosen not just for my qualifications, but because I'd rebuffed him. Because he believed no one would miss me. My double isn't just physically identical, I realized aloud. You've programmed her to respond to you, to be what you wanted me to be. Subject 37 understands her purpose, Stratton confirmed. Unlike you, she recognizes the importance of loyalty, to me and to the project. Outside, my double stood impassively beside Stratton's vehicle, watching the cabin with my eyes but none of my spirit. I'm coming out, I decided suddenly. Just me. To talk. Jackson grabbed my arm. Harper, no. Trust me, I whispered, then back into the phone. No weapons, no tricks, just conversation. Wise decision, Lieutenant, Stratton said. I'll meet you halfway. I ended the call, turning to Jackson. General Lawson's team won't get here in time if Stratton decides to storm the cabin. I need to get him talking, on record. It's too dangerous, Jackson insisted. He won't hurt me, I said with more confidence than I, felt. Not in front of witnesses. He still thinks he can salvage this situation. I activated the voice recorder on my phone, slipping it into my pocket. If anything happens, the evidence is in my encrypted email. The password is the place we met, followed by the date. Jackson pulled me close for a brief, fierce kiss. I'll be watching. First sign of trouble, I'm coming out. I stepped onto the cabin's porch, hands raised to show I was unarmed. Stratton stood 30 feet away, flanked by 2 men in tactical gear. My double remained by the vehicles, her expression blank. "Lieutenant Monroe," Stratton called, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Thank you for being reasonable." I walked slowly toward him, stopping at a distance just close enough for conversation but far enough to react if needed. "Where's Taylor?" "In the second vehicle, unharmed as promised." He gestured, and one of his men opened the SUV's door to reveal Taylor inside, hands bound but apparently uninjured. "Now, about those files," Stratton continued. "First, I want to understand," I said, playing for time. "How does it work? The duplication process?" Pride flickered across his face, the scientist eager to explain his breakthrough. "It begins with physical reconstruction, advanced surgical techniques to create an identical external appearance. But the true genius is the neural programming. We map the subject's neural pathways, memories, mannerisms, then implant them into a compatible recipient." "Subject 37, I said, glancing toward my double. "Who was she before?" "A nobody," Stratton shrugged. "A volunteer with the right physical specifications. Criminal background, no family connections. Perfect for conversion." "And how many others have you duplicated?" His smile widened. "You would be surprised, Lieutenant. The program has been more successful than anyone anticipated." The implications sent ice through my veins. How many officers had already been replaced? How deep did this conspiracy go? "It won't work," I said with conviction. "People know the real me. Jackson knows the real me." "For now," Stratton agreed. "But memories fade. People accept what they see. Within 6 months, no one would question her authenticity, especially after your unfortunate breakdown and discharge." I needed him to incriminate himself further. "And who authorized this project? Because it wasn't through normal channels." Stratton's expression darkened slightly. "There are elements within our government who understand the necessity of advancement, regardless of outdated ethical constraints. Project Doppelganger has powerful protectors." "Powerful enough to cover up treason?" I challenged. "It's only treason if you're working against American interests," he snapped. "We're creating the perfect intelligence asset, the perfect soldier. The perfect slave," I countered. "She's not me. She's a victim you've programmed to obey you." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Enough discussion. The files, Lieutenant, now." Before I could respond, headlights appeared on the road behind us, multiple vehicles approaching fast. Stratton's head snapped toward the disturbance. "What is this?" "This," I said with grim satisfaction, "is the real authority you should have been seeking." 3 military vehicles screeched to a halt behind the SUVs. Men in OSI jackets poured out, weapons raised, followed by a distinguished officer I recognized as Major General Lawson. "Colonel Stratton," Lawson's voice boomed across the clearing. "By order of the Joint Chiefs, you are hereby relieved of command pending investigation into unauthorized human experimentation and treason." Stratton's face contorted with fury. He reached inside his jacket. For a weapon, I realized a second too late. "Gun!" I shouted, diving to the ground as a shot rang out, but the bullet never reached me. My double, Subject 37, had lunged forward, placing herself between me and Stratton. She crumpled to the ground, blood blossoming across my uniform that she wore. Chaos erupted. OSI agents swarmed Stratton, forcing him to the ground. Jackson burst from the cabin, racing toward me. Taylor somehow freed herself from the SUV and was running in my direction. I crawled to my double, cradling her head as her life drained away. Her eyes, my eyes, found mine, confusion, and something like recognition passing through them. "Who am I?" she whispered. "Your name is yours to choose," I told her gently. "You're free now." A ghost of a smile touched her lips before the light faded from her eyes. 3 months later, I stood at the podium in the Pentagon briefing room, the weight of responsibility heavy on my shoulders. The room was filled with senior military officials, intelligence directors, and justice department representatives, all gathered to hear the final report on Project Doppelganger. The unauthorized human experimentation conducted under Colonel William Stratton involves 17 subjects, I stated, my voice steady and clear. Of those, 12 survive and are currently undergoing rehabilitation and identity restoration. Each victim was selected through a combination of opportunity and vulnerability. Individuals with limited family connections who could be easily isolated and replaced. The evidence Taylor and I had gathered from Building 237, combined with General Lawson's swift action, had blown the conspiracy wide open. Stratton wasn't the mastermind. merely an ambitious participant in a larger network of officials who had seen duplicating military personnel as the ultimate intelligence asset. To date, 37 co-conspirators have been identified across multiple branches of service and government agencies, I continued. 22 have been arrested, with more indictments pending as the investigation continues. I detailed how the duplicates had been created, a horrifying combination of advanced surgical techniques, experimental neural programming, and psychological conditioning that effectively erased the original personalities of the recipients and replaced them with copied neural patterns from their targets. The technology represents a fundamental violation of human rights and international law, I concluded. My recommendation is for complete dismantling of all research facilities and destruction of all technical documentation after thorough analysis by the Oversight Committee. Questions followed, probing and sometimes uncomfortable. I answered each with the directness that had become my trademark during the investigation. When the briefing ended, General Lawson approached me. "Excellent work, Major Monroe. Your promotion ceremony is scheduled for next week." I nodded my thanks. The promotion had come as recognition for exposing the conspiracy, though I took little pleasure in it. Too many lives had been destroyed, including that of the woman who had died wearing my face. Taylor waited for me outside, now a major herself after her role in uncovering the plot. "How'd it go?" "As well as could be expected," I replied. "The Joint Chiefs have approved our recommendation for a specialized monitoring unit to ensure nothing like this happens again." "Which you'll be heading," she noted with a smile. "Quite a change from where we were 3 months ago." 3 months that felt like a lifetime. After Subject 37's death, the case had blown open. The real Elise Renard had been discovered in a medical facility across state lines, a coma patient whose identity had been stolen to create the cover for my double. Stratton had confessed to multiple charges in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. His testimony had implicated others, leading to a cascade of arrests that reached surprising heights. "Have you visited her today?" Taylor asked as we walked toward the parking lot. "This morning?" I nodded. "The doctors say her neural patterns are stabilizing. She may regain consciousness soon. And when she does, what will you tell her?" It was the question that haunted me. What to say to a woman who had been programmed to believe she was me, only to have that identity shattered? "The truth," I said simply. "That she deserves her own life, her own identity." Subject 36. The woman who had been intended to replace Taylor before the plot was exposed, was recovering in a specialized medical facility. Unlike my double, she had never completed the final programming phase. There was hope her original personality could be recovered. Jackson was waiting at home when I arrived that evening. Our house, a new one, far from Travis Air Force Base, was filled with the aroma of his cooking. Normalcy, hard-won and precious. "How was the briefing?" he asked, greeting me with a kiss. "Productive. The Oversight Committee approved all our recommendations." He nodded, pride evident in his eyes. After the conspiracy was exposed, Jackson had been cleared of all suspicion. His quick action in contacting General Lawson had been crucial in bringing down Stratton's operation. "Any word on the technician who helped them map your neural patterns?" he asked. "Arrested in Canada this morning," I confirmed. "The net is closing." We settled into dinner, the conversation shifting to more personal matters. Jackson's new position with the Pentagon's Security Division, my upcoming role leading the Counter-Duplication Task Force, small steps toward rebuilding our lives. Later, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I found myself reflecting on identity, how fragile and yet how resilient it could be. "Do you ever think about her?" Jackson asked quietly. "Your double." "Every day," I admitted. "She didn't ask for any of this. In the end, she saved my life. Perhaps some part of her recognized the truth," he suggested, "that she was being used." I nodded slowly. The neural programming wasn't perfect. They could copy memories, mannerisms, even responses, but not the core of who someone is. Not the soul, for lack of a better word. My phone rang, interrupting the moment. General Lawson's number. I answered immediately. "Major Monroe." His voice was urgent. "There's been a development. A facility in North Dakota, similar to Building 237. We're assembling a team. I'll be there in an hour," I promised, ending the call. Jackson didn't need to ask. He simply nodded, understanding that our battle wasn't over, that perhaps it had only just begun. As I gathered my things to leave, I paused by the mirror in our hallway, studying my reflection. The woman looking back at me was changed. Harder in some ways, more compassionate in others. Forged by betrayal and vindication into something stronger than before, someone had tried to steal my identity, to replace me with a copy they could control. They had failed because identity isn't just appearance or memories or mannerisms. It's something deeper, a unique constellation of choices, principles, and connections that can be imitated but never truly duplicated. Ready? Jackson asked, keys already in hand to drive me to the airfield. I turned from the mirror, leaving reflection behind for action. Ready? The journey ahead would be challenging. More facilities to uncover, more victims to save, more conspirators to bring to justice. But I would face it as myself, the real Lieutenant Harper Elise Monroe, not defined by someone else's manipulation, but by my own determination to right a terrible wrong. As we drove through the gathering darkness, I thought of my double's final question. Who am I? It was a question we all ask in different ways throughout our lives. For her, it had come too late. For the others like her, and for those who might have followed, I would make sure they got their chance to find their own answer. Some truths can be buried. Some lies can seem perfect. But in the end, the authentic self emerges, as inevitable and unstoppable as dawn after the darkest night.